This episode of the Christians Who Drink Whiskey and Their Open-Minded Friends podcast is brought to you by Guy and Lady Barrel alcohol-infused cigars. These cigars are absolutely incredible, and they are perfect for any occasion. I particularly enjoy their newest flavor, Mojito. I'm not sure if you heard me correctly. I said Mojito-flavored cigar. I don't think it gets much better than that. Now, cigars are best enjoyed with company, so head on over to alcoholinfusedcigars.com and pick up a 5-cigar box set with any flavor of your choice. These cigars are great for birthdays, weddings. They're a great gift. You can give them for almost any occasion. I particularly love to get a cigar out, go on an evening walk, and pray. But you can use it however you want. Once again, thank you to Guy and Lady Barrel Cigars for sponsoring our show. Go to alcoholinfusedcigars.com and see all they have to offer. Please enjoy responsibly. Hey guys, Kevin Hackenberg here, host of Christians Who Drink Whiskey and Their Open-Minded Friends podcast here on Funny&Amen. You can abbreviate that F&Amen, and I'm here so excited because I've been thinking about having you on the show since we started. This is my friend and colleague for 20 years, Dave Manzo. Now, Dave is a director, an editor, a producer. Dave is, he introduced me to my wife. We are BFFs, and I don't know what that stands for. There's a lot of F's that are abbreviated there, like funny. And Dave now, in addition to having multiple properties, now lives here on the street with me in Kensington, and that's where we're filming tonight. Tonight, are we going to talk about what tonight is?
Tonight is a crazy night in the world of art history.
Dave and I are breaking two things. We're only 7 houses away, right?
Yeah.
So
7 houses
away. We're breaking curfew tonight. I'm not sure when you're watching this. We're breaking curfew tonight because of curfew. We're breaking quarantine tonight. You guys understand quarantine. Quarantine, the thing we've all been living inside of all over the world during the coronavirus saga, pandemic, and now, tonight, in Philadelphia, for the second night in a row, curfew, baby! Curfew. Because right outside, literally 4 blocks from our houses, there's looting going on. So, here we are. We decided to, your family's way outside of harm's way.
Yes.
My family's sleeping in bed.
Yep.
So, we're all fine. That's all good. It hasn't come toward residential sections of Kensington, Philadelphia, where we live. But it's happening. And so what a great night to have my best friend on the show.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
I like breaking the rules with you, as you know. We've broken many rules over the past together.
No. Everything's all legit.
It's the first time we've ever done this.
Also first tonight, I want to give a big shout out to John and Herman over at Dad's Hat Whiskey. Can't see this on focus that close.
Can I do that too? Can I go?
Yeah, woo, you can. Oh, I do have the auto one, maybe. So check it out. Dad's Hat is now a sponsor of Christians Who Drink Whiskey and Their Open-Minded Friends. I actually was introduced to Dad's Hat at a Christian fundraiser. So there are other Christians out there who drink whiskey other than myself. This was on the silent auction table, and I got it. So let's open up the Pennsylvania Straight Rye Whiskey tonight.
Yeah, this sounds good. They use only natural and local ingredients and the most careful methods. I'd like to know more about
the
more
most
about
careful
that.
methods.
What are the most careful
methods?
The
distillery is in Bristol, real close there.
Oh.
Had a great time there with a couple colleagues a few years back.
And supposedly Pennsylvania is the birthplace of rye whiskey. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what's the difference between these two? One is just rye whiskey, and the other is straight rye whiskey.
Yeah. So we'll have a little bit more about that on down below, and you can obviously check out dadshatwhiskey.com. I hope I'm saying the URL there, but if not, check it out. We're going to do a little ad here during the podcast for that. So anyway, cheers, Dave. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Boom, man.
All right.
It tingles. That's nice.
Very nice. It's got a wonderful flavor. It's very smooth. It's got a kick on the edge of it.
Yeah.
But in the middle, it's very smooth and warm. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. I have no idea. I need to take a class on. I mean, I started this podcast. I enjoy whiskey, but I'm not. I need to develop my verbology, my vocabulary.
Yeah.
Around whiskey tasting for these purposes.
Yeah.
Want you guys all to know, because I keep looking over at Dave. Dave's hairstyles change often, but this is not his hair. You will recognize mannequin number 1 up there is missing something.
I'll reveal the true Dave.
The real true Dave is very similar to the true Kevin right now. What? A little more scruff up there. A little more hair up there.
Should I put this back on?
You can do whatever you want with it. You put it back on your head. I just wanted to, like, people that know you will be like, what is he thinking? You know, like.
I did have hair like this when we first
They're looting.
met.
They're looting in the streets, and people
bit.
are going into the Foot Locker and stealing things. Dave went into the wig store. Dave went into the wig store tonight and was like, what he's always wanted. It wasn't like he's trying to loot it and sell it. Well, no, he's
Yeah. We got the whole costume too.
So we do. I want to say something. We do make light on the show. Funny&Amen exists to turn the mirror on ourselves and look at ourselves and look in the mirror and laugh a little bit. Mm-hmm. I think that, like, sadly, this week in national history, there's not much to laugh about. There's a lot of the week started with a pretty serious police brutality thing with Mr. Floyd out in Minneapolis, and then started with protests and started with riots, and now the riots have turned into looting, and here we are in 2 nights of curfew. So I want to make sure that that we know that if we are joking, and I'm joking about Dave, picking up a very funny wig and his looting, that it's humor, and it's not. Hopefully, by the time you're watching this, enough time has passed. This is serious. There's serious things happening in the world, and
it's good to be close to a friend like you, right down the street, be able to kind of debrief on all these things. We've been in quarantine together. Our families have been in quarantine together, so being able to kind of have that outlet to has been important physically. We've done it over the phone, and many people are able to kind of have that FaceTime, and which is such a blessing. Can you imagine this happening 20 years ago when we didn't have FaceTime and cell phone?
Yeah, and Zoom and all that stuff.
I mean 30 years ago, I guess, really, for the cell phone. But it just would have been a totally different, much harder experience.
Yeah.
And keep thinking of all the different ways that this time period has been best for a tragedy like this to kind of happen. Although of course things could have gotten better in certain ways. Yeah,
it's crazy. Well, I don't want to bring it down too much. I do want to focus. I want to just kind of mention things that are happening out there, and just saying that for all of the people out there whose families were affected by the coronavirus. We definitely are thinking of you, and don't make light of the things you went through with your health, maybe losing a loved one, maybe losing 3 loved ones.
Yeah.
There's someone in our church that lost father, mother, and brother.
Wow, that's
incredible. In the past few weeks. Mm-hmm. And there's many more people out there like that. And in addition to that, there are people on the front lines serving. Yep. And that was last week's news. It's still current news, but then this week's news, we have people that are, our African American brothers and sisters who have, systemically been mistreated, here in the U.S. and around the world, and then people who are law enforcement, who are putting their lives out there also. So everybody, we just our hearts and minds are for you. And if we joke, I want to make sure that you know that we are we're not just sick people that like to laugh at tragedy, but we do. It's an escape. Laughter is an escape valve, and so yeah. If you got something to say, email, type us, whatever. But in the meantime, we're just going to try to have a good hearty conversation here.
Yeah.
So let's talk about enough about the world. Let's talk about us. The other day we were talking about how long we've known each other and how that came about.
Yeah. You want me to bring up the story? All right, I'll try to keep it brief for those out there. But it was right after college ended for me anyway. You had already been out of college. You'd been working.
It's about a 5 year. It's about a 5 year difference here.
Yeah. I believe you're about 5 or 6, maybe 7 years older than me. You're 40.
I'm old. I'm 47.
47. Yeah, I'm 42. So 5. Yeah. So I was coming from Eastern University, which is right outside of Philadelphia, and looking for another person who believed the same things that I do, who had the same dreams that I did, and was praying for that person. And a mutual friend of ours who didn't really apparently know you all that well, although I thought for years he did. But you were.
It was that 5 year difference. I mean, back then in like high school, college, 5 years is like. Yeah. That dude's still in high school when I'm graduating college, you know. And,
but he was from your hometown, right?
From my hometown, yeah. Josh Seitzer. Woo woo! And Josh was on the podcast earlier, so yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was the bridge. For our relationship. And then we kind of hit it off pretty much right away. You recognized the passion that, I had, and I was, willing to be taught. I was your little,
apprentice,
protege,
whatever, intern at start, and then
I did everything. You started, actually paying me a little bit of money to do some crazy jobs here and there, and our friendship, grew and then teetered and grew and then teered. I think there's a couple times teetered. Where
we tottered.
I dropped a camera and then you had to question whether or not I was actually worth it, or
what?
I killed a printer or something.
Oh yeah, many equipment have died at the hands of my friend Dave Manzo, and me too.
I'm a creator, but also a destroyer.
You have to break an egg but not a camera, Dave.
So, but yeah, no, we.
Thanks for admitting that.
Yeah. Hey,
on international television here.
This is international.
I'll send it to somebody in China and say, watch this, please.
For the 12 people that might watch this.
Yeah. 24.
24.
No, but that's honestly, that's what it's all about. That's what Funny&Amen's all about, is admitting your flaws, because you admit your flaws, you know, especially in film. Film, as in humanity, is a team sport.
Yes.
100%. And so
you can do it yourself if you have a lot of money.
Well, no, you can. You still need.
To do exactly what you want, but you don't really do it as well.
Yeah, you can't do. For those stop motion people out there, animators. At some point you're gonna harness a creative side of you that isn't quite all there. Mm-hmm. When you get music, you get an editor, you get at least the audience, get people reviewing it, the marketers. Anyway, film's a team sport, and I think that especially in film, we have to turn the mirror on ourselves and say, what am I good at? What am I bad at? Who would be better for this project than me? One of Dave's favorite movies is The Goonies.
Yep.
We just watched it last night. It's very fascinating to me to see someone like Steven Spielberg put himself out there early in his career as a Steven Spielberg Presents.
Yeah.
Just as a producer.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting thing, because we all think of Steven Spielberg as the director.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't direct that.
He didn't direct that, but it was, he said, here's something, and here's this other guy, Richard Donner, let me put it out there. So I think that there's that idea of, as I grow in my career and grow in humility, there's the idea of hey, maybe I shouldn't be at the helm of, maybe I should be at the helm of the business side of this project, but not at the business side of the directing of it. And I think that over our career, I recognize that about you. Your passion there.
Yeah.
But you know, I remember we did this 48-hour film.
Yes.
A long time ago.
We did a few, but
a few.
Yeah. Which one are you thinking about?
I think the first one, 4.50.
Oh yeah.
2003. And I know that
you can put a link to in the video if people want to see.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I think that I'm not sure until then if you had edited a narrative for me under the time constraints of that. You've done a lot of time constraint stuff.
Yeah,
I knew that.
You would one of the first jobs you threw me into was a job where there was these crazy time constraints on a. I mean, it was like boot camp for filmmaking.
Yeah. It was like news. It was more like news than it was
but
filmmaking.
Yes, yeah.
The schedule.
Yeah, so that
go in the morning, get them ready by 6 p.m.
So that was like a Habitat for Humanity, but it was called Christian Endeavor, and there was a bunch of kids on with youth groups that would go down to places that needed work done, and there were so many kids that I would hop around to all the different sites where all this work was being done, and then I had a camera with me and I'd do a little story, but a lot of times it was a little movie that I was making every day, and it was one of the most looked forward to things every evening because I had to shoot. I was up at like 6 in the morning, and then I was out with them all until at least noon, if not 1 or 2, and then I came back from 2 until about 8 o'clock. I mean, I ate dinner in my room every night. I had lunch when I got back, and then I edited straight through dinner, and then the presentation was from 7 to like 8:30, and my video was always the last thing. So I knew at like 7 o'clock, like I needed to be like close to exporting because so by like the end of like the 3rd year, I think I did it. Like, I mean, I was really good at getting things done quickly and figuring out like what. Yeah, the first year was so rough. Jamie Moffat, who might watch this, he was there with me and definitely helped me. He was my main crutch for the first week or two. And
it's interesting as a.
You were talking about the 48-hour film festival.
Oh, but I'm just saying there's different. When I got into video, I didn't realize the breadth of using the cinematic arts. And there's stuff like news that it's just like it's churn and burn. You're like, we got a deadline at 6 p.m. to get this story out, or maybe noon or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And then you kind of go up, and there's like there's sports, which are a little bit more slower and more produced, and then there's like what we want to do and are doing is film. It's like where it's just a work of art. So you and on that side, there's the joke is there's no such thing as a finished film. Right. There's only films that are abandoned because all the artists, the editor, the director, the producer, we're all like, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's gotta be better. So I think that putting you and me as artists into that news environment is challenging.
Yeah, well, I think it was creatively. It might have not been as newsworthy as like a news station would have wanted, but I think because I have a creative and a director's hat, which a lot of guys that are out there shooting. I mean, I've done some random news jobs or jobs where I was documenting something and there's news people around. And they're workhorses. I mean, they go out there and they're creating, but they're pacing themselves. They know this is the shot I need to get for the studio. This is it. They understand they're not making a movie, right? Yeah, but you're out there. I didn't understand that, right? I was out there making a movie every morning, and this was like I said, I was free to do whatever I want, and they were kids, so they loved everything because they were on the big screen and they were cheers and it was such a morale booster for me because I had an instant audience every night.
That was great.
That was built in that awesome. I knew were going to love it, and I was ripping off Christian music bands and all that kind of stuff, and I'm sure they don't mind at all. I was helping them sell some CDs,
when CDs were around them. But I think that we got into the 48-hour stuff, and and that was when I first saw you shine as the storyteller that you are. And I'd already seen like a tidbit of it with like a couple of the super creative things you got to do at Christian Endeavor camps.
Yeah.
And also I saw, you early on do some projects on your own with my gear, and it was great. And I think that
The Sock Monster.
Sock Monster, a great little short film. But what I was gonna say is that on the 48-hour film we had like this like crazy insane amount of time, and you just dedicated yourself to it, to making it so awesome. And it was just one of those things where like no one's sleeping. I got to sleep a little bit because you were there editing, and I trusted you, and I was like able to be like get up in the morning and be like,
yeah,
that's awesome. Now do it my way.
Well, I remember that film.
Actually, no, I think Gary directed that one.
Did.
So like,
yeah.
so I had it even more. I got
you shot it.
I got another hour of sleep than I.
Yeah, I remember that one. I remember I was on set for some of it, but a lot of times I was back because everything had to be digitized right away. I was back at the studio waiting for tapes.
Yeah.
And as soon as a tape came in, I was, and then I'd be, chopping it up and then waiting for the next one to come in, and and I remember the beginning part of that, while you guys were shooting was a little slow, and then when that last tape came in. I basically started pounding the Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
This was back when I was like early 20s, and that's pretty much what I survived on.
Yeah.
And I remember just cranking through.
Yeah.
I don't remember the time. It just was like there's a puzzle.
Yeah.
I've got all the pieces.
Yeah.
At least most of them.
I just gave this compliment the other day because you have a background in acting. And a background in music, like initially, it's everybody gets on a film school.
And theater acting, that's is something like film acting is a very prestigious skill.
Yeah.
But there's coming from a theater acting skill, and I don't really do that as much anymore unless I have a unique opportunity, which I always like to take advantage of. But there's a camaraderie, a collaboration. There's a team. There's a family environment.
Mm-hmm.
That you get sometimes on feature films.
Yeah.
But I feel like you get that a little bit more in theater because of the fact that you're the whole cast is in one space. It's not like various sets all over, and sometimes you're with certain people and sometimes you're not. Like, but I carry that with me in all the ways I produce and work with.
But what I'm trying to say there is that in that moment. I knew the acting side of you, and I'll be honest, sometimes like you're like, okay, he's an actor, all right, but I think the people I love are like actors that also kind of go work behind the camera and understand like the huge effort that goes on behind the camera. I think I have in the past, just launching Funny&Amen, I've got in front of the camera more often, and I'm like, whoa, the workload in front of the camera is so different, but it's still a lot of work.
It's a totally different craft of preparing. Like you have done, so much behind the camera. Like you understand like exactly what needs to be set up, how it needs to be set up. You understand the art of that. Like that's built into your brain. Like as an actor, like there's so much prep work that needs to be done, and just kind of switching over to that is such a skill. Like there's a it's easier obviously for people that do it all the time. But and it was easier for me when I did it all the time. But you really have to kind of center yourself and bring yourself back to, okay, this is the character I'm going to become, or this is the the persona I'm going to have, or this is the energy I need to have.
But seeing you on that film come in, and I think that like I had done some other like short films prior to that, or been part of them. I'm not sure I can remember how I may have produced or not before that. But that film, I was like with you in the editor's seat, which is the director's seat, which is another.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're the first person that gets a chance to like make critical decisions, directorial decisions.
Yeah.
But what I saw is like there's like I saw your critique of the performances and finding moments that weren't even part of the take. They were part of the pre-roll
That's
before
true.
the clapper came down, and then finding these little looks that like were puzzle pieces that were like left on the floor. You know, that in a typical editing room would have been on the floor.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so you found those pieces to put into the story, and then you also just synced up things with the music in a way that, you know, for me as a guy who like, you know, had like 3 years of piano lessons and played the saxophone, all right. You know, there was that like, you know, there was that high school jazz band concert where there was nobody else, and I had to like, oh crap, I'm the guy with all these solos, you know, like, but I had to work so hard, but I never felt it I never felt music as a total passion.
This is where we insert the photo of Kevin playing his
saxophone with a mullet.
Yes.
With my mullet from high school.
Put picture here.
Derek knows the one. So, but I'm just saying that music and that acting background, boom, that's when I saw it. And I was like, after that, like there hasn't been many films that I've said like, oh no, I'm a better editor than Dave for this, you know.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah. And now what I'm excited about is that you have your own company also, and that you're hiring me.
We hire each other, back and forth.
Yeah,
cheers to being able to do that, supporting each other's families, which you know, we have some growing families for sure. Yeah.
So we've been talking here for about half an hour, which is divine.
Mm-hmm. Where do you want to go with this?
Where we go with this? Where I go every half an hour, on the half an hour or thereabouts is the big question. Well, let's talk before we get there. Let's talk a little bit more. What are you doing right now? So we're here in COVID time. We're here in curfew tonight. Like, where you've got a place. Your family's not in Philly right now.
No, we have. We just moved to Kensington, down the street from me, right before the whole COVID thing happened.
Yeah.
But about 2.5, 3 years ago, we bought a place up in Allentown, where my wife's Allentown, New York, to be clear, and not Allentown, Pennsylvania, which is about 5 hours north of here. And
the way Dave drives. If you Google it on a map, it's
15.
Maybe like 6 hours.
Yeah, depends.
By Google, but they don't know everything.
Stop and pee.
They don't know everything.
So we have a nice little small farmhouse with a barn and some property down the street, and it seemed like the smart place for us to go. I have 4 kids, so you know we wanted to be outside and at that place and close to her family just in case they needed anything. So we quarantined up there for a few months and we of course homeschool. Yeah. So I in that meantime, you've asked me what I've been working on. Have been trying to focus on a documentary that I've been working on for many years called Finding Time, which you know about. And if you would like to check it out, I have a Facebook site called Finding Time, and also been working on a project that you were involved with. That kind of came from this whole quarantine situation. You know, watching SNL, the at-home version, I said, I can produce something like that. I know all the people, the comedians, the funny friends, the actors, that are just kind of creatively bored at home right now. Let's utilize them. So I created a little show called Laugh Online, which is a SNL ripoff, basically, where it's 5 skits, musical act, and a host. And check it out. If we actually finished the first episode, it only took us like 3 weeks to do, and everyone shot it themselves at home. Following all the social distancing rules, which was it was a lot of fun. Working with, I brought on Pete Plastiglione and Val McAdoo, both amazingly talented.
Oh, that's so good.
They're actors, but they also have an acting company called the Acting Co-op, I believe. And I brought them on to direct because, as much as I like to direct, I didn't want to fill all the shoes on this production. I kind of wanted to just kind of be the captain of the ship and let some creators and Of course, they have all the connections, so I was really impressed with what we all did. I mean, everyone jumped in where it was excited, and we created some pretty awesome content that I was pretty proud of, and happy to say that I spent my time somewhat wisely, during this quarantine,
creatively, making art,
using my creative
and making people laugh. I think that's a huge, laughter is the best medicine.
Yeah,
so
and distracting them from, the fact that have to stay at home and, feeling they're also being productive and producing something. So
cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of been what I've been working on.
You have like a feature film company you're talking about editing?
There's a feature film that I'm thinking about cutting. Haven't committed to yet, but in the works. I have a couple friends that are in the middle of getting production started again that hopefully bring me on board or talking about bringing me on board. So we'll see how things turn out when things start turning on again. I think a lot of people are going to be really excited about trying to get the ball rolling as soon as possible.
A lot of people are like, I got a bucket list. One of them is to make a movie, and I need an editor.
And I need a
need a director.
Or I need a director.
Need a director, need an editor, yeah.
Or, a cameo actor, whatever. Yeah. I'm here for you.
That's awesome. This episode of the Christians Who Drink Whiskey and Their Open-Minded Friends podcast is brought to you by Dad's Hat Pennsylvania Rye Whiskey. Dad's Hat is real rye whiskey made the right way. This month's featured bottle is Straight Rye. The first straight rye made in Pennsylvania in over 25 years. This delicious whiskey is distilled farm to bottle in Pennsylvania with locally harvested grain and aged for a minimum of 4 years. The classic pre-prohibition flavor profile is the result of time-tested distilling methods and painstaking attention to detail. Head on over to dadshatrye.com to find a distributor near you, or if you're a Pennsylvania resident, you can have any of their delicious rye whiskeys delivered right to your door. Trusted distillery with over 200 years of American distilling tradition, Dad's Hat Rye. Please drink responsibly. So the question I ask everybody on the show, because my favorite topic, is what do you think of Jesus?
I think he is a pretty amazing friend of mine. I got a friend in Jesus. Yeah, not enough good stuff I can say about the guy, to be honest. I know him personally and have known him personally pretty much my whole life.
You grew up. Give us a little backstory for the audience. You grew up in a Christian home,
in a pretty conservative Christian home, which had its very good aspects of it. Also, some things that I think I learned from, which we all do. But really had a great upbringing. Had a great church. Great family. I was very blessed. I have one brother who's now an ER doctor, so he's in the front lines dealing with all kinds of stuff. Went to a Christian school up until about 8th grade, where I had lots of opportunities to have friends who were in the same kind of belief as me. So it wasn't until I got to high school that I kind of saw a little bit more of the world, and but my parents did a great job. I wasn't sheltered. I did a lot of traveling. My mom's from England, so we did a lot of traveling there, and my dad's from Maine. We did a lot of traveling there. I had a lot of friends through soccer and other activities that weren't related to the church, but the church really was my main family, and and Jesus was the person that I went to with all my problems and concerns, and I talk to him as often as I possibly can. I think, like anybody who's honest, there are times when, you might not have been as close to him, as you would have liked. But I always come back, and he always is there to forgive me and love me and show me new things. And he shows my wife new things on a regular basis. And it's been so important to have a spiritual, friend who believes the same things as I do, is sometimes more passionate in certain areas of her faith than I am, which is, keeps me awake. So yeah, I've been really blessed with the fact that from an early age, I've talked to Jesus, and now I've seen, as I'm 42 now, some of the conversations I had with him when I was younger, those little seeds that, like, he listened and he made things happen in my life, and in miraculous ways sometimes, but
Any specific examples there?
Oh, sure. I mean, film career is a big one. The connections to you is a big one. I think when I would talk to him about the kind of girl I wanted to marry, I never thought I would marry Sarah when I first met her. But I always asked that I would marry somebody who was my best friend, who I thought was smarter than me, because I always wanted to be challenged. I didn't want to, marry somebody that never challenged me, and I was fine not being the smartest one, as long as she was married to me, that counts, right? So, and loves me, even though I'm not the smartest one, and is okay with me being the dumber one, but no, she's amazing, and then I think, even like little things, like I prayed for 2 boys and a girl. Like I wanted 2 boys, like me and my brother, that were close in age, which I have, Cree and Amen. And Cree's 12 and Amen's now 10, and or 11 actually, and then I got a girl right after that, Nia, and she's 9, and then of course we had a surprise, another boy, 5, who is just like, the icing, the cherry on the top of the cake, who, just makes us smile all the time. Because we've got the older kids, and he's still like that little bundle of young energy, keeping us real, keeping us, completely honest about life. His perspective is it's great to have at this age in my life. Because I think when I was younger with the younger, kids, I was still young, and I didn't really appreciate, the younger, innocent stuff. Like kind of grandparents, like when they see their, their grandkids, like, they just think it's so beautiful. And, parents that are young, they're just like, of course they see it in their kid, but they're just so tired, and they see it so much, Anyway.
What, here we are. You introduced me to my wife. That was
yeah. Well, luckily our wives are best friends.
That's good.
I was able to introduce. Do a little fixie up there.
Yeah, it was nice. No complaints here, man. No complaints here, and you got another one smarter than me. So,
yeah, I felt bad about that. I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
Maybe I feel a little good about it.
Well, I think that staying on the topic of Jesus, working in the film world or working in different projects, have you had, I had a pastor from my hometown call me, and he was like so distraught. He's like, well, my son wants to like work in film, and he was like, what?
Oh yeah.
Can he maintain his faith in film? And I'm like, did you just call me? Like,
yeah.
And what's my reputation in my hometown?
No.
I guess so. Good for you working in film. Have there been challenges to your faith working in film, or just life? Here in this time of curfew and quarantine.
Yeah, I think overall, working in the film business is challenging whether you're a Christian or not. Just getting work, especially when you're working in not like Philadelphia. There are movies made here and there are productions here, but it's not in LA or in Atlanta, where there are that many productions happening. So if you've got dreams like us to make films and we're doing it here in Philadelphia, you better believe in Jesus, because he's the only one that's going to make those connections happen, in my opinion. I feel like I'm here for a reason, and I follow the Spirit as much as I can. So being a Christian in the film business, I haven't really had to like turn down too much work, because of that. Because luckily most of the jobs that I work on are pretty good. They're corporate, or they're there's a couple of like music videos and things that I've worked on where I'm glad that my name isn't on it as a producer or something larger, that I was just kind of like on the lower end of the credits. Nothing that I would be terribly ashamed of, but I didn't write it. I didn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
So I think those are the productions that I'm more concerned about, as far as how what people are going to think about the work that I'm doing. Like if I'm going to put my name on something, stamp my name as something that I've created, like I want it to be something that that I can sit down and watch with Jesus. So I kind of look at anything that I create in that vein. Like am I going to be able to sit down in the movie theater, and watch this comfortably with not my wife, not my parents, but Jesus, right? Because something that my wife won't like, or my parents won't like, Jesus might laugh at, or something. I mean, you don't know.
So you're saying your wife is more opinionated than Jesus, or?
I'm saying everybody.
Probably, yeah.
I'm saying everybody. Who reads the Bible. And talks with Jesus, has a personal relationship with them, and you can't really know what that relationship is. It's all based off of their purview, their perspective, how they were raised, how they were taught Jesus, how they converse with him. That's all a personal sort of thing. And I'm very open. Jesus sees every aspect of my life. He's seen it all. He's seen some pretty crappy stuff that I've done, and he's forgiven me. So we have a pretty open relationship, and I can talk about anything. So I can read his word. I can read the words that he spoke in the Bible, and also the words that were spoken about him, and I can make an assumption on what kind of crazy character he was. I mean, he was a radical. He was out there saying things that people didn't like in that time. And so I feel like I might make art that people won't like, just like Jesus said things that they didn't like. So, I have to be respectful. I have to know what his limits are to the best of my knowledge, and I try to honor that. I mean, that's my purpose in life, is to make films, to make art, to make children, to make that love and that honor, the mission of the kingdom in the end, which is why I feel like I'm in this business. My art, if I was doing something else, would be limited. And this, I feel like the sky's the limit. God can take a film that I make, he can take a video I make, and he can make it go anywhere.
What's the project that you are most proud of, or that Jesus sitting next to you in the theater would be most proud of you? You might say, good job, or maybe the Father saying, good job, Dave. Well done, my faithful son.
That I've completed so far?
Yeah.
That's a tough question. That's a really good question. I guess a lot of the projects that I see myself...
Some of the editing you've done for Funny&Amen, probably.
Sure, of course. Yes, of course. It's funny. I mean, I'm a very tough critic of myself and my work, and it's always one of those things where, it has to set sail eventually, and whether I'm happy with it or not, I have to put on a happy face and say, here's my...
No such thing as a finished film. Dave has abandoned some beauties. I think they're amazing, but as an artist, you're never done with it.
Yeah, and so I feel like sometimes I feel like the best work that it's still to be made. I've been doing a lot of prep work. I've been sharpening my axe for a long time. I've worked on a lot of great projects, and I've helped a lot of people make their films. And I've made some of my own. But doesn't be one that you've directed. Sure.
One that you say like, I'm proud of. I was part of this film. Maybe
Yeah. Well, I think the last film that I shot. that is not released yet. That was shot by or directed by Joshua Coates. It's currently titled "What Would I Do Now?" Or I think that's the name of it.
Yeah.
And it's a romantic drama that was set, I believe, in like the 50s, and it's based on a true story, which I love true stories, and even better, it was based on a true story of a man that wrote it, who was basically dying as we were shooting production.
Yeah.
And his last wish was that, we got this production done. He had written this film before he found out that he was sick. He had, tried to make it. He didn't have much money. But when he found out that, his cancer was terminal, he was like, oh, well, I'm not going to need all this money in the future. Let's take what I got and let's make my film. I'm going to make my film before I die, which I think is why not? Go out with a bang, right? And it wasn't just like some frou-frou film. It was a film about his life, his love story with his wife, that he wooed, and his family, and we shot it in his home, and like it was super. I think that one for me is currently the one that I feel the best about, because Josh Coates dropped everything and said, hey, listen, we've got to get this film shot in the next month. Can you be available? And I was like, oh yeah, this has got to be done. This is an amazing opportunity. And it was he asked for a miracle and he got it, and we shot it, and it was done before he died. He saw a rough cut of some of the best moments of all the different scenes. He didn't see the final film, but he'll see it, and his family will always have that. He'll always, his story will always be out there. So I feel like that one probably.
That's cool.
Yeah, I feel really good. I haven't seen the film yet, but
yeah,
I'm sure it'll be great.
What about tell us a little about Finding Time, the documentary, because I think that film. When I think about who you are.
Yeah.
All right. So a little tidbit about Dave and me. Dave has always outshined me as a documentarian. And
well, that's because you don't really shoot documentaries.
Might be your odds are good. Yeah. Your odds are good at shining documentaries. I do them for money. If you have a documentary,
that's right.
Call it. But no, my wife Meg used to always be like, why can't you be more like Dave and just kind of like videotape our kids and whatever? I'm like, I don't want to be around the camera when I come home from work. I want to like just enjoy it myself through these lenses. But you started this documentary about your house in your town, Allentown in New York.
Yep.
And tell us a little about it.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to spill the whole story because it's a big, long story.
Yeah, just
But about 10 years ago, I started shooting this documentary in my wife's hometown. She lives in Allentown, New York, where we recently bought a home 2 years ago, which I mentioned already earlier. And at the time, I didn't really know what I was getting into. I was working with another filmmaker, pretty well known. His name is Nathaniel Kahn, on a project that was going to be an art installation about his father, who was a famous architect, Louis.
Yeah, My Architect. It was very well-known documentary film. Yeah. So
we were taking pieces from that and making it into an art installment that went all over the world. And so I was talking to him at that time, about, I'd like to make a short documentary. He was like, short documentaries are all the thing now. If you want to win an Emmy, make a short documentary. So as we were like the weekend after, I found out about this group of people that were meeting in front of this old school that was always an icon in the town where my wife lived. I mean, it was right in the center of town. I mean, it had broken glass. It was like this beautiful eyesore that just drew you in. You wanted to know more about the story behind it. And I heard some because of Sarah's family. I also knew that her grandmother worked there. But her grandmother was kind of like hush-hush, didn't really talk a lot. Sarah had more information, but Sarah was never even able to get in the school. It closed down before she lived there. So it's kind of like it was like a mystery building. So we found out that there was going to be a group of men that were going to get their metal detectors out and try to find a lost time capsule that was buried in 1950 that nobody knew exactly where it had been placed in the ground. A lot of people had ideas of where they thought it was, but nobody knew exactly. So I thought, hey, this is great. We're going to find a time capsule. They've, a whole metal detection club of like 20 guys is going to come out. Like, we're going to find this thing. And so I think I had my GL2 camera back in the day and the mini DV tape, and I went out there and I just got the story, basically shot it like I did, all the other, kind of the short docs, Christian Endeavor or whatever, style, and just getting the little bits of the story. And all day they were out there and found, Coke cans and nickels and, and real interesting characters too. Like, the one guy had these handlebar mustaches, and I mean, that area is just, people can be themselves there, know, and that's what's great about, that's why we moved up there, because there's just so many real people. There's just such a real community. There's just like an atmosphere where you have this freedom. You can go up in your land, and like people really enjoy that. And it grew on me after being up there, So I started, just shooting that one day, and of course they didn't find the time capsule, but they ignited a spark, in me, and I'm looking at all this footage, and I'm showing it to my friend Nathaniel, and he's like, "Oh, this is gold. This is great. Like, oh, you've got to, you got to keep going with this one." So, so I just kept going, and I kept thinking, well, we're gonna find it, and I'm gonna have this little short documentary, and then one dig, led to another dig, and 10 years later we finally finished shooting anyway. So now I'm in post-production, and I think that will be something that I'm very proud of, but it's kind of too early to tell. I'm proud of what I did in the production itself. I think Dave became man of the year of this town. Yeah. Was that 3 years ago, 4 years ago? It was a good 3-4 years ago, but it was the last time they awarded it, because the board that was the Alumni Society, they pretty much, when the school closed, they all kept growing older. So like the alumni class, had been, dying off. Wow. And they basically said there's not enough of us left at this point, to do it anymore. So they stopped it. So I hold the title. I hold the title until I revive it and decide to bring it up again. I
think it's a great, the documentary right now, I believe our friend Nico coined it, is called Finding Time.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a great, here we are in a night of curfew and quarantine. And quarantine for everybody in the world, part of my international producers group, IQ, we get on these calls, and everyone in the world is having extra time or different time, that they're not doing the things the way they used to 5 months ago,
right?
And there's time being found there. There's other time being sucked up on Zoom calls, on other things, on new projects you're starting to kind of embrace, to create, to be human, to create and tell your stories or keep your family going, your business going. Mm-hmm. I think the finding time idea is such a powerful one, because we have things we want to accomplish as creators. We have families we want to spend time with as parents and as husbands. Yep. And I think that's a really, and right now, even in this time, celebrating or honoring this man in Minnesota who passed away, and just kind of thinking about, the time that we have to kind of sit back and think, and, are we finding time to call people, are we finding time to do the right thing?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Are you making the right choices with the priorities in your life? Because I know I sure make mistakes with the priorities in my life. That's one of the biggest faults in my life, is that I can waste time better than no other. I can find something.
I don't know. We'll have to like fight over that because
yeah.
I'm a pretty good procrastinator and time waster.
Yeah, and I mean, in some ways, it's I say that, but it's also I'm great at doing things last minute. Like that's where like I seem to really rev up. And things kind of happen under pressure. I'm great under pressure.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
And I think all the times that I'm in the downtime where I'm like, goofing off, and I say goofing off, but I'm like, I'm watching a Netflix show and I'm binging it, or I'm listening to a random podcast, or I'm reading a random article on Facebook instead of doing my bills and stuff like that. Like
never done
I'm
that.
soaking it in. Yeah, I'm pushing off the stuff that I should be prioritizing.
Yeah.
But as an artist, that's kind of like what I need to feed the creative side of my brain that's subconsciously taking all that stuff in, so that when crunch time is there and the time deadline is pushed up, like I've got a plethora of stuff ready to like spill out, if need be, or at least to dive into, to go inside my head.
Plethora of inspiration.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's important, but I think it's always it's important to have and to get your bills paid and to
probably
take care of your basic needs like showering but yeah, you're right. You have to you make time. You have to find time. I mean, obviously the name of it's got multiple meanings. We're trying to find a time capsule. Yeah. But I mean, I was fighting to find time to shoot that documentary every single time because I was usually doing it on my own time. And I was doing it on my own dime, and I was doing it, with a family in tow that weren't filmmakers, that were, young kids that, and luckily I had, a great family, supportive wife, most of the time, when she wasn't losing her mind, like, she was, so great at pushing me forward. And so, that's definitely key to any success that I had. But yeah, it was also me forcing, myself to make those steps, to push against the tide, even though, it didn't feel like it, or, I didn't feel like, going to all the different places and knocking on all the different doors, but it works. It really, really worked. And the seeds that I planted there, I think are growing in that town already. I know they're growing with my family already in that town. I don't know if I'll ever really see. I hope that the documentary, will really flourish, that story, so that people in that town, but also towns all across America. I mean, that's really what this is a condensed story about a very small town, an oil town that had some success back in the day, but there are so many towns like that dried up as soon as other things became more affordable in other areas of the world, or bigger stores opened up that took things away from the little guys, or or just life moved on, and better machinery came around and outdid the older stuff, so these towns like all kind of weren't able to keep up, but people still lived there. They still tried to hang on there. They had to adapt. So it's not just Allentown's story. It's every town's that's got a similar kind of background story, and I hope that encourages people to kind of go and dig back into the past and not forget about those great things that happened, the people that spent all that time, creating the neighborhoods that they currently live in, So.
Okay. Well, dude, thank you for hanging out, man.
Yeah,
we have been at it for about an hour. I think that Dave Manzo has been my guest, especially excited to be here because we're good friends. We live in the same block when he's not at his Western New York homestead. And dude, thanks, man, for hanging out, coming and be safe out there, walking.
We're gonna keep drinking, right? Because I don't have to walk. I can walk. I can walk home. So
we're still in quarantine. Let's do it.
Let's keep going. All
right, check us out.
Cheers.
Funny&Amen. You can abbreviate that F&Amen. Dave, thank you. You guys are patrons.
Yes. Always.
Thank you very much.
Supporting you has been one of the.
Dave's an amazing supporter of the arts, including these arts. And thank you. You can become a patron too at patreon.com/funny&amen. That's patreon.com/funnyandAmen. Go there and check out some original content that you can't see anywhere else. You can see these podcasts a week early, and there's lots of other exclusive content that's up there. And you can get swag from our new store that is launching soon on funnyandAmen.com. So thank you very much for joining us. And Dave, thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Cool.
Bye.
Stick around. Go to patreon.com. We're going to ask Dave a few more questions that are crazy. Like, Dave, what happens, do you think? Patreon exclusive question, what happens after you die? Go.